What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is The Flash, Season 6, Episode 16, So Long and Good Night. I wish I could say so long to this season, because, man, it's not been good after the crisis. Honestly, this could have been an interesting episode. First of all, we're finding out more about Eva and her husband, whose name escapes me, because he's just not interesting, so I don't really remember. Carver is what they're calling him. I don't think that's his full name. I think that's his last name, though. But yeah, we're finding out a little bit more about their relationship, but I just still don't care. Like, he's some big corporation guy and he has access to all these metas that he uses to assassinate his competition. His wife is stuck in a mirror, and for some reason, she wants to get him back for that. I don't know if he's actually responsible or if she just blames him for not coming to rescue her. I don't know. I don't know, and I don't care. We're 3 episodes from the end of the season. I still really don't understand anything about the villains. Because really, they're both kind of villains. Like, she has taken over a lot of people. I find out apparently Captain David, or well, former Captain David Singh, is also one of her mirror people. Could have been more interesting if, one, again, like I said before, this was not a known thing, that these people were being replaced by mirror versions of themselves. That would have been a legitimate twist of like, holy crap, she's replacing people. And then all of a sudden we find out, oh, Captain David Singh is also in this. But as it is, we already knew she was doing that with Iris and with Camilla. And Singh is not really one of the main characters, so having him be replaced, just kind of like, first of all, why and how did this happen? When did Mirror Iris ever have a chance to replace him? Who knows? But apparently he's been replaced for some time now, there were some moments when, I don't know, his reactions kind of made me go, please don't tell me he's actually the mole or he's working with the mole to help out Carver. So to find out he's a mirror person, I'm just like, okay, so he was a bad guy, because, I don't know, just some of the ways that they shot his scenes, all I could think was like, you're trying to make me feel like maybe he's the suspicious one. So, I don't know, but again, finding out, oh no, somebody's already been replaced by a mirror person could have been an interesting thing, but you do it with kind of a side character, not as hard hitting. I'm just kind of like, oh no, okay, good to know. He's been one of the ones replaced as well. Cool. On top of that, you bring back, in my opinion, one of the most, I don't want to necessarily say creative villains, but just one of the more memorable villains in the Flash history, Ragdoll. When I first saw him in his debut episode, loved it. It was so much fun to watch. The guy that they got to play him, clearly a very good contortionist, and he utilized it very well. The sound effects that they had for him, also very effective and very creepy. Made for a very memorable villain. And then they CGI the crap out of him in this one, basically turn him into Elongated Man, which he couldn't do that, right? Like, I'm not mistaken in thinking he wasn't able to just, like, stretch himself in the first episode. He was only able to contort himself into, like, tiny little places. So it wasn't like he could just stretch his body out like he did in this one. Like, he could become stretchy because his bones were able to just bend and fold and, like, squish himself. But stretching himself is the opposite of what his powers were able to do before, as far as I remember. So that seemed like very random and out of nowhere. What else? Sue Dearborn shows up again. Ralph is still tracking her down. I did actually, because a friend of mine suggested that I read The Blackest Night, Green Lantern comic, because I have heard some stories about it, and I know it's very iconic in the comics series. But it was interesting to see, because they do mention Ralph Dibny and Sue Dearborn Dibny. So it was interesting to see that apparently they get married in the comics. So I'm guessing they've been clearly setting them up as a couple already. But it was just kind of fun to be like, oh hey, I know them from the Flash show because I've seen them on the Flash show. But their story in this is just not really that interesting. It's still fun to see Ralph be this kind of quippy sort of secret spy agent type of person. He gets Cisco along for the ride on this one, and I don't know, just some fun lines, very clever dialogue. But all in all, I'm still not that invested in their story. We find out apparently Sue's been trying to basically take down this guy who was blackmailing her parents. I'm just like, okay, so she's secretly got a heart of gold. Whoop-de-doo. I kind of figured that already from the first episode. Either that or she's playing him again. I don't know. I really don't care because it seems like such a side story now compared to everything else going on that I really just don't care about it. Like, again, I enjoy Ralph doing his spy thing, but it's not like I want to see him go down this romantic storyline with a girl that's constantly playing him every single time that they meet. So, aside from that, we've got Barry in this one dealing with Joe being in danger, not having his powers to help him, and again, a possibly interesting storyline, but it's just dragged down by so many other things that it's hard to really get invested in it, because not only is he dealing with that, he's also dealing with Iris possibly, not feeling the same way about him anymore. She's constantly just ripping into him about every little decision he makes. Very Felicity, if you ask me. Joe is trying to be captain, but also wants to take down Carver because he knows Carver's a dangerous person who's targeting his family, has already targeted Iris. So you just got all of these other little things that sort of pile on to a very interesting concept of Barry without the Speed Force and trying to figure out how to keep his speed with the Speed Force now gone. It sort of takes a back seat to everything else going on, and I'm kind of frustrated about that. Because I would like to see more about Barry trying to live without the Speed Force or trying to find a way to create his own Speed Force. I mean, that storyline would be very interesting. But that's not the main focus. It's honestly becoming kind of a side plot to everything else going on with Eva McCullough and Carver. So I don't like the fact that they're doing that. Because everything else is not as interesting as that storyline. But they're trying to make it seem like, oh no, this is the big talking point, guys. This is what every episode's going to be on. And then we'll focus on this more interesting stuff later. And, I mean, the final scene between Barry and Iris, they hold on that forever. She's blaming him for all of this stuff, and she's like, I can't believe you didn't let me say goodbye to my dad. I can't believe you're not using the last little bit of your Speed Force that you have left to track him down. I can't believe you're not doing all that for me. And Barry just, oh, Iris, I'm sorry. I know you're acting completely different now, and you're not at all yourself, but God, I'm not seeing any of this because, God, oh, I mean, we're only 3 episodes left, so surely at some point in these next couple episodes, maybe hopefully even in the next one, because then we'll set up for the final 2, Barry trying to find out what actually happened to Iris. But at some point, you gotta wake up, dude. When you've been married and when you've known somebody as long as Barry has, this is not Iris. If this was Iris, I would have a lot more complaints because a lot of her points are very stupid. Barry literally cannot take her and try to find her dad for her. He tried to contact her and she didn't have her phone near her, probably because she was doing some evil stuff for Eva. And she's blaming him for that. And she's blaming him for him losing the Speed Force. Even though it kind of is his fault, but not really to blame for it. She blames him for not using up what little Speed Force he has left to find her dad. And I know part of that is like she wants him to use the Speed Force because apparently Eva wants him to run out of the Speed Force because she wants to, I guess, stay trapped in there or something like that. I don't know. I don't really know what Eva's plan is because I thought her plan was to get out, but now it seems like maybe she wants to stay because she wants the Flash to be drained of all of his Speed Force powers because that would be what would help them get out of there. But yeah, that whole storyline, that final scene between Iris and Barry, them having marital problems, them having issues and arguing and fighting with each other, I'm not saying it can't happen. But 1, the reasoning behind it is stupid, and 2, this isn't the real Iris. So why do I care about this story? They're playing it up for like this huge dramatic thing, the sad music is playing, and all I could think is, I don't care because I know this isn't the real Iris, and her reasoning for why she's starting this fight is ridiculous and selfish, and Barry should look at this and say, this is not the woman that I married. So either something really, really changed, which nothing has. Like, it's not like she lost her father, like he died. No, he's just going to WITSEC. So that's not enough to change her personality entirely. Or this isn't Iris. And the possibility of a doppelganger or somebody replacing her, putting on a mask that looks like her. I mean, all of the possibilities in their world. He should be thinking, okay, this isn't really Iris, guys. Like in our world, if somebody started acting completely different, your first thought wouldn't be, this isn't that person anymore. Because in our world, it's not as likely that somebody has just been completely replaced by somebody else. It's not something that happens every day in our world. Not saying it can't happen, but it's not something that it's not the first thing to come to mind. In the Flash's world, that would be one of my first thoughts. Is this really Iris? Because she's acting way, way different than she normally does. So, did somebody replace her with a lookalike or a fake or a doppelganger? Never comes to mind. Even in this big epic fight, which comes out of a completely stupid and selfish reason, Barry doesn't even occur to him. He finally snaps back at her, because most of the time this season she's been snapping at him and he's just been like, okay, I'm sorry. He finally snaps back, just like, hey, I'm going through a lot. I'm losing my power. I can't breathe anymore whenever I run. I feel like I'm being pulled apart. I'm going through a lot. And you're taking all this out on me. And she's still just, get out. I don't want you in my life anymore. Seriously? That's all it takes? Is me not using my power because I can't? And suddenly now you're kicking me out of the house? Are you really Iris? Like, it's just so many moments that all I could think is, okay, that's got to tip you off, right? Okay, that's going to tip you off. Surely that, okay, you're just stupid this season. Good job, writers. I swear they brought writers over from Arrow to write for this season of The Flash, because so many stupid things have been written into this season that I only saw in shows like The Flash or Supergirl. Or, not The Flash, Arrow or Supergirl. So I'm not used to seeing such terrible character writing on The Flash. So, that being said, on to the Witsec part of things, which is also really dumb, because we see Ragdoll takes Cecile, puts her on this pressure plate bomb, which Joe's just like, okay, hey, I see you, I know you're shaking your head at me, but let me just run in like it's no problem. On top of that, for some reason, instead of just putting like a C4 or a Claymore or something that's going to trigger as soon as he walks in, there's like a little pulley string, which could have easily been seen if Joe had just looked in and been like, wait a minute, the door, there's this long string connected to her seat. Maybe I shouldn't walk in. No, he just ignores all that, walks right in, pulls the pin out, starts a 5-minute countdown for a pressure plate bomb. So Carver really wants Joe dead, correct? Then why give him 5 minutes to figure out a solution, especially somebody who's known to be able to work with the Flash? You give him 5 minutes to work with instead of just an instantaneous bomb as soon as he opens the door. That's so dumb. So ridiculously dumb from the bad guys. Also, I forgot about Carver's stupid moment earlier in the episode. Joe goes to see him to record their conversation. Literally within, 30 seconds of Joe accusing him? Yeah, Ragdoll, he came in and he tried to kill me today. Oh, you're telling me that I hired a guy to pop out of a box to kill you? I didn't say he popped out of a box. Oh, darn, and I was doing so well, too. Were you? The first accusation he throws your way, and you fall for the easiest trick in the book. You name exactly how the assassination was supposed to take place. He didn't give you any information at all, aside from who the assassin was. He's like, oh, I didn't tell him to pop out of that box that was in the room. I didn't tell him to hop into your engine and press the acceleration. I didn't tell him to do any of that. Well, how do you know about any of that? Oh, you caught me. What the Oh my god. It was just the dumbest thing I've ever seen. On The Flash, too. Again, I hold this show to a higher standard than the other CW shows. I know it's still a CW show, and I'm not saying there have not been dumb moments in the past for this show, but most of the time the dumb moments were stuff that I could handle. You know, moments that I'm just like, okay, that was kind of silly, but at least they brought it back with some good writing later on in the episode, or everything else in the episode was well done, except for this one thing. This is just so many dumb things piled on top of each other. And it just keeps getting worse. Because after all is said and done, Joe manages to get out of there because of the luckiest wire pulling a bomb I've ever seen. Just like, oh, pull the green wire. Oh, they're all green. Except for this one that's a little more green than the other. So I'm going to pull that one. And it worked! So he does that. And he's like, I'm going to go into WITSEC. So they take Joe into WITSEC. And leave Cecile and Jenna completely wide out in the open. So let me get this straight. We just had an episode where Ragdoll went after Cecile to try to get to Joe. At the end of that same episode, Joe goes into WITSEC, leaving Cecile and Jenna completely unprotected and out in the open. Writers, you want to maybe think about what you're writing? You want to think about the fact that you just showed that Cecile and Jenna are in danger because Carver's going after Joe? So maybe they should go into WITSEC with him? You want to think about the fact that maybe putting him in WITSEC and not them is kind of defeating the purpose? Because they're still in danger? With Iris and Barry, totally makes sense why they wouldn't go because, unknown to everybody else, Barry's the Flash. So he should be able to take care of himself. But the rest of Joe's family that's very close to him, like his wife and kid, that are completely defenseless and unprotected, they should probably go too. But no. Because we want Joe out of the way. We want Cecile to have to deal with being a single mother because Joe has to go into WITSEC. That's probably going to be a storyline in the next episode, is her trying to deal with being a mother by herself without Joe around to help out. That's the only reason why they've done this, more than likely. Because I can't think of any other reason why you would put this stupid decision in the show other than, well, we want Cecile to be on her own for a bit. Because it's dumb. It's pointless. It completely ignores the fact of what all happened in this episode. Good job, writers. You've stooped down to Arrow levels of not making sense with your writing and forgetting things that you've just written into your episode literally 5 minutes later. And suddenly now, everything you just showed us, this whole past episode, you're showing us that Joe and Cecile are constantly in danger because Carver's going after Joe. Now, 5 minutes later, you've forgotten about all of this, and you're like, okay, now Joe needs to go into WITSEC because he's in danger. Cecile, she's fine. She's completely fine. She's not in any danger. Again, I've never felt this way about this show before. Even last season with Nora, I had my frustrations with her, but there was so much else going on that I enjoyed and I found interesting. Cicada, her working with Thawne in the future. So many other things about last season were enjoyable. I was able to sort of go, okay, you know what? Nora, she's not the best, but I can put up with it. It's the one stupid thing this season. With the Thinker, Dibney was kind of the one stupid thing for that season. The Thinker was kind of an interesting villain, interesting plot and plans that he had. So I was able to put up with Dibney because everything else around it was pretty well done. This season, I just can't find anything to grasp onto. Again, Barry losing his powers because the Speed Force died because he had to basically kill it to save the world and the universe. That's an interesting story. But it's not focused on enough for me to really get behind it and really be like, I want to see more because they're not showing me enough of it. And it's kind of becoming more of a side story now. So I'm done. I'm done with this season. I'm ready for next season. I'm hoping next season will be just good. You don't even have to be as good as some of the other seasons. Just be good again. Give me something good to hold on to. All right. On to the next episode. See you there. And now episode 17, Liberation. So apparently Barry did know. At least he suspected most of this time. I really do wonder, just because obviously I don't know if we're ever going to fully know what the writers were thinking throughout the season, but I really do wonder if this was planned when they started writing. It's like, okay, so he's going to notice, but we can't let the audience know that he noticed until way later on. Then we're going to it's going to be a big reveal, like, ooh, surprise, Barry knew this whole time, and he's been keeping track of her, and he's been trying to figure it out, but he didn't want to tell anyone till the right moment. I guess maybe it works. I don't really know if it works or not. And I don't really want to go back and watch to be like, okay, are there moments that they slipped in that now that I know he's been aware this whole time? Because obviously there were the little weird looks, from him and Joe, where it's just kind of like, is that right? That seems off from her? But there was never any real like, oh yes, see, Barry, he suspects something's wrong. It always just felt like it was kind of a, Iris, what's wrong with you? And not a, is that Iris? So the fact that apparently he's been on to it the whole time, he's been trying to figure out what it could possibly be. I'm at least glad that they did throw in that thing. It's like, this sounds crazy, but we've seen crazier. I'm like, thank you. At least you acknowledge the fact that the possibility of this not being Iris is not crazy in this world, because it's possible. I did like the whole, like, I thought it could be a Martian, but then John Johns would have sensed a Martian, so what about shapeshifters? And just that whole bit at the beginning I thought was well done. But again, was it planned? Was it not? I don't know. But at least for me throughout the season, there were too many moments where I just was getting frustrated because of this whole storyline. So this was not enough to save it, but at least it put it in the right direction. However, after that, then we go back to Cecile doesn't really believe him, even though, again, Wally came in for like, what, a couple hours, and he's like, something's wrong with Iris. Something's wrong with her. Joe, for some reason, he's noticed some weird things, but he's not like ever thought something could be wrong and something could be different about her. He's just like, are you okay? You're acting different. Cecile actually went and talked to her, and she even says later, she's like, there's something off whenever I talk to her in the office. I'm just like, did you just forget about that? You literally just came from the office where you sent something weird about her, and then Barry's like, this isn't Iris, and your first thought is like, Barry, you sound a little crazy. Stupid. So then, of course, they trap her, and all I can think is, I mean, it's way too soon, and it would be way too easy for them if they just trapped her. And on top of that, it would really knock this whole other side story that they threw in, where this mirror Iris suddenly wants to be her own person. Okay. I thought literally these were just basically a mirror image, but they're basically hollow husks that she is controlling. But now we're seeing, no, these are actually real people that have been created by Eva, and they can become their own person outside of who they're replicating. Because reasons. I don't know. It just seems odd that suddenly we're going to throw this storyline in. So I knew they weren't going to end it with her getting trapped. Because, I mean, again, that would just put that side story completely on the back burner, and we do have to talk about that at some point. So, her getting out of the whole situation, Eva apparently using a different, whatever it's called, prismatic whatever, to make it seem like she's real, but Barry's a mirror person. Whatever. All I could think is, this could have been so much better if this were actually a plot twist and Barry was the mirror person. And that's all I could think of. Is like, this could have been a much better storyline where Barry suspects something is off about Iris, and maybe she has been acting a little differently, but it's because she really is dealing with a lot of stuff and she doesn't really know how to handle it. And so Barry going down this rabbit hole is just like, oh, Barry, maybe. But of course, if we knew that these mirror people existed, but we didn't know that Iris was one, then it would be like, oh, so maybe that's why she's been acting a little differently. And then all of a sudden this moment comes and it's like, holy crap, Barry's the mirror person this whole time? And it would also fit because maybe he's not using his powers because he says, well, the Speed Force is dead, so I don't want to use my powers and use up what little I have left. But then we come to find out, no, he's not using the powers because this is a mirror version of Barry, so he can't use his powers. What a great twist that would have been. But because we know everything that's going on, because the writers for this season are just like, we don't want our stupid audience to not be able to figure out every little detail about this plan. Let's make sure they know who's in the mirror and who's not. So this whole thing is just like, okay, so they switched the gun, right? They switched this little device thing, and that's how they got out of it, because we already know Iris is the mirror person and Barry is not, and this is part of Eva's plan. So it just, it fits within this story. But all I could think about was a better story that could have been more intriguing and with better plot twists and better moments of, oh my gosh, that's crazy. So I'm frustrated because of that. However, Moving on from that, like I said, we go down this whole thing where this other Iris is questioning herself, and then Camilla, the fake Camilla, like kills herself to release Ramsey so he can give them some blood, which I guess somehow negates this whole thing where when Eva steps out of the mirror, it will burn her skin. Somehow his blood negates it. I don't really get it. And he's just like, I don't need to escape. There are other ways to escape. Call this the long game. And I don't know. It just feels like they wanted to acknowledge, we didn't forget about the first half of the season with Ramsey, so here's our way of shoehorning him in. So that was just random, and again, the fake Camilla just sacrificing herself for this. Okay, I mean, are we just? What's weird to me about this is, so this fake Singh is now involved, and he's just constantly helping out. Does his husband not ask any questions about where he's been with Camilla? Cisco's not talked about Camilla in a couple episodes now. Does he just not remember she's in his life? Because, she's now gone. There's no more fake Camilla in his life. So, was he just not going to question any of that? And of course now it doesn't matter, because now Barry knows who the other mirror people are, which just takes any of the fun and mystery out of them trying to figure out who could possibly be a mirror person. But that's not what's important, because we don't want our audience to have to think. So we're going to give all of the information that they need, so that way there's no mystery and there's no surprise. And it's just, we're here to help you. Just grab your hand and lead you along, so you don't have to use your brain. You just turn it off and watch this show. Again, very Arrow-esque, if you ask me. So, with that being said, I'm trying to remember. The other random plot point in this was Caitlin apparently going through something. I don't even know what it was, but she just suddenly is getting like super freezing out of nowhere. Even though she's still Caitlin and not Killer Frost. I don't know. It was just very random. It was a few scenes where Cisco and Ralph go to check on her. They realize the room is super cold. They realize it's her doing, and she's like freezing, and so then Ralph has to heat her up. Where did that lead to? They're going to see Caitlin's mom. That's all I got out of that. So very, very much just a distraction in this episode. Cecile, after she ends up turning on Barry because she believes the fake Iris instead of him, puts him in the cell and then instantly changes her mind. I don't know. There was that one scene where she reads Iris's feelings and she's like, something just feels off. And Iris doesn't think, that means she's on to me, and she just leaves. And I guess that was enough for Cecile to go, okay, I read her thoughts and there was something weird about her, the way she was feeling about this whole situation, so now I'm going to go let Barry out because now I believe him. Just random, out of nowhere. So that was frustrating. Then the whole fight at the end was just kind of not that exciting. It was basically Terminator Iris, so you would think that would look kind of cool, but in reality it's just kind of like, okay, so Barry's there, and he's the Flash, and he's just not really paying attention. Just standing in a room full of mirrors. She's already hit you several times throwing her arm through a mirror, so maybe use your super speed to get all of the mirrors out of the room. Instead of using your super speed to dodge, maybe do something useful with your super speed. Maybe that would help. But no, he just stands there and gets cut. But then eventually Iris talks Eva down, which then, I guess, breaks her connection to the fake Iris, which then allows Barry to talk to the fake Iris and get her to turn on Eva, which then Eva kills the fake Iris. So I'm just like, okay, whoop-de-doo. What did we accomplish? I don't know. I really don't know. Eva steps out of the mirror and she's now like, I'm going to liberate this world. What? I don't even know what her motivation is. I know she hates her husband, which Iris is like, no, you don't, because you still call him your husband. I'm like, okay, so she doesn't even hate her husband, which is the only motivation that I got throughout this entire second half of the season, is that she wanted to make him pay for whatever he did to cause her ending up in the mirror dimension, I guess. We never really fully got an answer for that. just doesn't even want to make him pay anymore because I guess she technically loves him, and then says she wants to liberate the world, and I don't know. She's suddenly gone full supervillain, wants to take over the world somehow. Why? You see this right here? This is character motivation. Kobe. Toss that right into the trash. I mean, who cares, right? I mean, it's not like villains normally have good motivation. I mean, Thanos, what he was just a mad power tyrant? Who cares that this was all about him thinking he was doing the right thing by having the population to help people survive because he thought overpopulation was the problem? Who cares about any of that? All you needed was he was a bad guy and he wanted to kill people. That would have been enough. He would have been a great villain, just as good as all of that stupid character motivation that they gave him. Psh, stupid. So we got 2 more episodes of this season. I can't wait for it to be done. I've never felt this desire for The Flash for a season to just end, but here I am. Just that bad that I'm just waiting for it to be over. I just really, really hope that they did something interesting with next season, but if the writers stayed the same, probably not. I guess I should talk about the one moment in this that was kind of like, okay, that was actually a nice scene, was that final one where essentially Barry and Iris are having conversations. It's kind of the same conversation, but on their different sides. And it shows me at least they still know how to write Barry and Iris, because they haven't really done it very well this season so far. Oh, speaking of Iris, I nearly forgot. She apparently missed this huge-ass button that was on the side of the mirror this whole time she was in there, which I still don't really get how sometimes Eva could just disappear and go talk to her loyal subjects, and Iris is just sitting in this room all by herself going, I wonder where Eva is. She never thought to go look for her? I don't know. But then, yeah, apparently there's just this huge button on the side of the mirror that Iris completely missed for this whole second half of the season until this one moment where she's like, I'm going to break the mirror. What's that? I can't believe I didn't see that there. Huh. Big shock. Yeah. But yeah, that final scene between Barry and Iris was at least something nice that could end the episode on like, okay, that was well written. That was a good moment. Too bad might be the only good moment in the second half of the season. That was a slog. So that's it for me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 2 episodes? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Flash reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.